Hi, my name is Zach with CGStatLink. Thank you for taking the time to watch this tutorial. This is the first of our tutorial series for CGStatLink products. We're going to be talking about CGStatLink Lite for Football. We'll go a little bit more in depth with this tutorial since we'll kind of introduce how the underlying technology works. CGStatLink has three main purposes. The first being pulling data from StatCrew game files. StatCrew software is used by schools to track game stats as they happen. Someone from the sports information team typically from the home school, they're sitting at the press tables at the side of the game or up in the press box, and they have this software and they enter every detail about plays that happen. And StatCrew then stores all of the stats for different players, for the team, for game statuses. There's usually like a narrative of what the play was, things like that. So CGStatLink then takes that data, parses it out into a format that's a little bit more manageable for character generators. The second goal of CGStatLink products is to be a scoreboard controller or a score bug controller, really, in the absence of StatCrew. So there's a manual mode that you can see. You can see the buttons down here for that. We'll get to it a little bit more detail later. And then there's a hardware controller that you'll be able to purchase to simplify a lot of those manual controls. But if you don't have StatCrew, maybe you're a high school, your school just doesn't use StatCrew, you can still use this product to control your scorebug pretty efficiently. The third feature in CGStatLink products is an internal generator. Now we haven't really finished developing this part of the software yet, but over in this bottom corner of the screen is where kind of all that happens. We'll actually have a list of different pages that you can send out. At the moment, as of this tutorial, and once this feature is implemented, you will not be able to have a whole lot of control over how those graphics look. But in the future, we plan on releasing a project editor that would allow you to add a couple, customize those pages in case you want to do something that's more in line with your brand. Okay, so let's talk about how CGStatLink gets the game files from StatCrew. I'm going to come up here to File, and we have two ways of getting data from StatCrew. First is browsing to a local file. The second is FTP connection. The local file format is more of like a mapped network drive. So you would need to talk with your IT department to set that up on campus if you want to do it like a shared server storage. Or you could map a folder directly between the two computers. However you want to set that up, you need to discuss that with the sports information department, as well as probably your IT department if there are certain domain restrictions and things like that. The browsing for a local file is by far the fastest way of getting the data from StatCrew. The second way is through the FTP connection. StatCrew has a built-in feature called Cloud Connector. The way that works is the sports information director can go into their StatCrew web-based content management system, their portal, and set up different FTP sites that the Cloud Connector will transmit game files to. So what actually happens is the application software on the StatCrew computer saves the game file. The Cloud Connector transmits it to StatCrew's servers on the cloud. Then that server distributes copies of that file out to any number of FTP sites. And at which point CGStatLink then continually monitors that file. You can change the refresh interval. We actually have it set at 1 second, just because that's the fastest option available, but you can change it to something else if you want. Then we constantly refresh that file. We always check and see if there's a new version, and if there is, we download a copy to the CGStatLink computer, at which point the CG then is immediately updated. So whichever path you take, you do need to be in contact with the sports information department to set that up. You could use one of their FTP sites that they're already using if they're using something for their conference or for their live stats site. You need to get the username, password, obviously, and you need the full file path, the target directory within the FTP site to make that work. You can also save profiles here. You can give the profile a name and save it, and then recall it later. It saves everything except the password. Okay, so let's come back over here. How then does the application get the information out to the character generator? Well, you'll notice back behind here, I actually have a copy of live text running. Live text is a character generator for NewTek TriCasters. This product will work with several others. It'll work with Livestream Studio 2.0. There will also be added functionality for Wirecast through the internal character generator. And any other character generator that can read XML files or CSV files should be able to work pretty well with this. Okay, so how does it get the information out there? Well, you then actually come up with file, configure data output location, and then you navigate to the directory where you want the file to be. In this case, for live text, there's a specific watch folder, but like Livestream Studio for the CSV file, you can designate any location out of CGStatLink and then designate the same file location in Livestream Studio. We'll have some other tutorials later that have specific practices for different character generators. Before we get to all this data, I want to talk to you just real quick about the configuring image paths. You'll notice down here in the score bug that I've created in live text, you'll notice we have these timeout logos. We have the Stream Powered Productions logo, and then we have the possession logos. We also have the team logos. We'll get to that in a different section. But basically what happens is as the game file information comes in, the application will perform some logic on the incoming data and then determine which images should be applied to specific placeholders that you've defined in your character generator. So in this case, we've defined certain images for if the team does have possession and they don't have possession, and then the same if there's a timeout left or remaining, or if there's a timeout taken, and then the sponsor logo. I'm just going to come over here real quick into live text, and you'll see the sponsor logo there. That's the Stream Powered Productions logo. There's some other graphics here that also use that logo. So the way this works is anytime you set up a placeholder in live text, anytime any multiple pages then can be updated very, very quickly. So you could do this with the sponsor logo. You could set that up to do maybe you want, instead of your station ID, you want an actual sponsor. Someone's paid you money to put their logo on your score bug. You could do that. And then at halftime, let's say you have someone else paying you money to be your halftime sponsor. You could come in here during a quick commercial break after the first half is over and before your halftime show begins. Change that. The score bug would update as well, but you're not going to be seeing the score bug during halftime. You would only be seeing like this. This says pregame show, but it could easily say halftime show. Okay. So that's how you define within the application what images get applied for certain data outputs. All right, let's talk about the interface here. We have a number of different panels here. Up here we have the venue panel. It gives us the date of the game, the venue, the city. Start time should be listed as well. It's not in this version. All of this information was entered by the sports information director or one of the statisticians, whoever was setting up StatCrew. Let me say that again. I entered none of this information in CGStatLink. It was all provided for me. I set up a template in live text, and all of that information just updated for me right away. You'll see here also we have connection status, and then you'll also see when the file last refreshed. I actually have an image sequence, or I'm sorry, I actually have a game sequence that I'm running right now. That's a diagnostic tool that we set up to help kind of troubleshoot and test the application. It's refreshing about every 10 seconds. So in a real world situation, you wouldn't be seeing updates this quickly. But this refresh lets us know a couple things. If internet connection was lost, it's going to let us know about what time that happened. But more to the point, if your CG isn't updating, this gives us a little bit of an idea of where the problem might be. If this hasn't updated in 10 minutes, it's a good chance that something's not wrong, something's not correct in the connection. Furthermore, the automation button would change to off if the connection was lost. So, but if the CG isn't updating, but all of this information is, that kind of gives you an idea of the problem is somewhere between this application and the CG. All right, so we have the different team panels, or team boxes. All right, so we have the different team boxes that gives us the team logo. These totally awesome clip art logos are not the actual logos of these schools that are part of the test sequence. Although you have to admit these logos are pretty awesome. You have the line scores, you have the team name, the full name, the short name, total score, record and conference record, timeouts remaining. One thing I want to quick talk about is you'll notice here we have conference record information, but there's nothing there. Also, we have the shorthand abbreviation for the team. And both teams have FB at the end, as you can see here. That stands for football. Well, that's good for the live text or the live stats file from StatCrew, but we know it's a football game. The people watching at home, watching the webcast, know it's a football game. I'm going to turn off automation here real quick. If I come up here to the game menu and come down to game settings, here you can see we can actually do some overrides of specific fields, and I've already entered this information. But to enable it, I have to click these checkboxes. And if you do not have a StatCrew file coming in, you would actually override all, and then you would enter all of this information. Click OK, and now you'll notice that the shorthand name for both teams have changed, and there is now a conference record there. So that gives you a way to enable, continue to have automation coming in, but to override specific values that are coming in as they relate to the venue and specific team information. Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about manual control here. Manual control actually works as temporary overrides when automation is going on. So what that means is, let's say there was a really long play and it resulted in maybe a touchdown, but the specifics of the play were such that the sports information director has a lot of information to enter into StatCrew. And that could take some time. Then they have to save the file. And if you're doing FTP, that could add a couple seconds as well by the time you get the file. And all you want to do is add 6 points to the score bug. So even in automation mode here, I can still click 6 points here, and let me try that again. I can add 6 points. You'll notice it changes there, it changes down here, and then at the next file refresh, it goes back down to 18. That's because I added those 6 points of my own volition, not because the game files would actually reflect that. So, but that shows you that if you were to accidentally enter information at the next refresh of the game file, everything would reset back to normal. Okay, so you can control all of the different point assignments, timeouts, down to go, line of scrimmage, possession, side of the field, all of that, quarter. And then additionally, we have this kick button. And even if you're doing full automation and you really just don't intend to do anything with any of these manual buttons, you're just going to let the data refresh in its own in the due course of time. The kick button might still be of interest to you, and that is something that you can apply when there is a kick for an extra point after a touchdown, or if there's a field goal attempt. What you can do here, I want you to take a look over here at the 1st and 10 line here. I'm going to hit kick, and that's going to change it to a 29-yard attempt on the BC 12. And then at the next refresh, it's going to go back. So what that does is it will take whatever the line of scrimmage was. It does some math there to calculate the line of scrimmage to the end zone, and then it adds 17 yards, 10 for the end zone, plus 7 yards for where the actual ball gets thrown back behind the line of scrimmage, as 7 yards is kind of the traditional distance that ball gets thrown. And then at the next file refresh, it reverts back to the down to go format. So one more time, I'm going to click that, and I want you to actually watch down here on the score bug. So 18-yard attempt, and then it goes back. All right, so over here we have the clock. This is the game clock. Here we will be adding a play clock as well. And this will, StatCrew does not have real-time clock support. It will do some timestamps of when plays were done, and you can use when the clock stops, in the manual clock stops, you can pull that last clock value to kind of reset it. So if your operator was slow to stop the clock, they could either reset it manually here with these buttons, or they could just wait for the XML to update and it would restore back to, maybe it adds 3 seconds because your operator was 3 seconds slow to stop the clock compared to what the scoreboard says. And then you can also reset the clock and things like that. We will also be adding support for external clock data. So we'll be looking at adding Sportscast as well as like Score OCR from Graphics Outfitters. And then at some point we'll be adding serial clock over RS-232 from Daktronics if you have an All-Sport CG. One thing real quick here, in future tutorials we'll talk about the specifics for like live text graphics and some of the other character generators and production systems that are out there like Livestream Studio. But I do want to say that every product in the CGStatLink series will come with a basic graphics package. So this graphic that you see here will come with the program, and you would be able to access that from the help menu and graphic templates. So we'll have graphics package for live text, for Live Stream Studio, and then um, for for programs like Wirecast, where it's more of a screen sharing type of situation, we will have basically this same graphics package that will be used through the internal character generator here. The internal character generator will work in two ways. It will render a dynamic PNG file that Wirecast can continually pull in. And then we also hope to also use that for like frame buffers in TriCasters, as well as send that over to like Blackmagic ATEM switchers. And then the dual screen mode will actually take advantage of a second display output on your computer, where it will generate a full screen chroma key background CG that you can screen share through like IVGA or remote desktop presenter or remote camera in Live Stream Studio, or like direct DisplayPort output into an ATEM switcher from Blackmagic, or into like an HD SDI converter to get it into some other switcher then you can key out the chroma background. So this is a very robust system to get into several different character generators. And it works again with or without the StatCrew source. It certainly is easier with StatCrew, but we also want it to be pretty easy to use as well in the manual mode. When the manual when the control surfaces become available, we'll have another tutorial on how that all works. But we will have some custom control surfaces that should be compatible with all of our future products. So we're not looking at we're not doing a controller for every sport, but the button labels will be interchangeable, so you can retool it for, let's say, basketball or baseball. So more details will come on that, but it will mimic every manual control that you have available in the interface. So that about wraps it up. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to go to CGStatLink.com, go to the contact page and send us an email. All of our products have 15-day free trial periods. Encourage you to download those and try it out for yourself. And I hope to see you again on a future tutorial. Thank you very much for watching.